Hey everyone, in this video we will discuss about Regulating Act 1773. तो ये फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट था ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट का टू रेगुलेट द अफेयर्स ऑफ द ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी। अगर हम इसकी की फीचर की बात करें तो एक पोस्ट क्रिएट की जाती है गवर्नर जनरल की। जो गवर्नर थे बंगाल के वो बनते हैं गवर्नर जनरल ऑफ बंगाल, और वॉरेन हेस्टिंग जो है वो बनते हैं फर्स्ट गवर्नर जनरल ऑफ बंगाल। इसके साथ ही 4 मेंबर की काउंसिल क्रिएट की जाती है टू असिस्ट द गवर्नर जनरल, और बॉम्बे एंड मद्रास की जो प्रेसिडेंसी है उनको सब ऑर्डिनेट कर दिया जाता है बंगाल के। नेक्स्ट पॉइंट है सुप्रीम कोर्ट की एस्टेब्लिशमेंट होती है कलकत्ता में 1774 में। ये एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। नेक्स्ट पॉइंट है जो कंपनी ऑफिशियल थे उनको प्रोहिबिटेड किया जाता है फ्रॉम एक्सेप्टिंग ब्राइब्स एंड गिफ्ट्स। लास्ट पॉइंट है जो कंपनी के डायरेक्टर थे उनको रिपोर्ट करनी होती थी रिवेन्यू एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की टू द ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट। अब बात करते हैं इसके ड्रॉबैक की। तो इसके ड्रॉबैक ये थे कि जो गवर्नर जनरल था और जो काउंसिल थी और जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट था, इनकी जो पावर है वो क्लियरली डिफाइंड नहीं थी, जिसके कारण क्या हो रहा था कि इनके बीच कन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा था। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर काउंसिल को या गवर्नर जनरल को कोई बिल पास करना होता था तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट उसको रिजेक्ट कर रहा था, जिसके कारण इनके बीच कन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा था। और मेन जो इस एक्ट का एम था कि करप्शन को स्टॉप करना है, वो नहीं हुआ इस एक्ट में, क्योंकि पावर जो है वो किसी की भी क्लियरली डिफाइंड नहीं थी। तो इसी चीज़ को सॉर्ट आउट करने के लिए ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट एक एक्ट पास करती है, एक्ट ऑफ सेटलमेंट 1783, जो हम नेक्स्ट वीडियो में देखेंगे। Which act solved the conflict between Governor General and Council? That is Act of Settlement 1781. So hey everyone, in this video we will discuss about Act of Settlement 1781. Act of Settlement 1781 को ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट ने पास किया था। इसका मेन पर्पस गवर्नर जनरल और काउंसिल के बीच चल रहे डिस्प्यूट को ख़त्म करना था। इस एक्ट के कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स है। फर्स्ट है टाई होने पर गवर्नर जनरल को कास्टिंग वोट दे दिया गया। द गवर्नर जनरल वॉज गिवन अ कास्टिंग वोट इन केस ऑफ अ टाई इन द काउंसिल। नेक्स्ट पॉइंट है काउंसिल का मेजोरिटी डिसीजन बाइंडिंग रहा। द डिसीजन ऑफ द मेजोरिटी ऑफ द काउंसिल वुड बी बाइंडिंग ऑन द गवर्नर जनरल। थर्ड पॉइंट है गवर्नर जनरल काउंसिल की कंसेंट के बिना कोई रूल नहीं बना सकता था। द एक्ट रिस्ट्रिक्ट द गवर्नर जनरल फ्रॉम मेकिंग एनी रूल्स विदाउट द कंसेंट ऑफ द काउंसिल। इस एक्ट का मेन एम था टू रिमूव द डेडलॉक एंड कन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन द गवर्नर जनरल एंड हिज काउंसिल। ये एक्ट सिर्फ फोर्ट विलियम बंगाल पर अप्लाई होता था। इट वॉज एप्लीकेबल ओनली टू द गवर्नर जनरल एंड हिज काउंसिल एट फोर्ट विलियम बंगाल। This act did not make any change in other provision of the Regulating Act 1773. Let's talk about the importance of this act. It solved the problem of frequent conflict between the Governor General and the Council. Next point है it gave more stability and efficiency in administration. Next है it was a step towards strengthening the British control over the East India Company. And last है it improved the working of the administration in Bengal. In next video we will cover Pitt's India Act 1784 passed by William Pitt the Younger. Pitt's India Act 1784 was introduced, but why? Let me explain in 1 second. Because Regulating Act 1773 was not effective. There were conflicts between Governor General and Council. British government had very little control over company. Mismanagement, corruption, oppression in India continued. That's why Pitt's India Act 1784 was introduced. So hey everyone, in this video we will discuss about Pitt's India Act 1784. This act was passed in 1784 by the British Parliament under the leadership of William Pitt the Younger. It was enacted to remove the defect of Regulating Act 1773 and to increase the control of British government over East India Company. अब बात करते हैं इसके की फीचर की। इसमें ड्यूल सिस्टम को इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया। फर्स्ट है बोर्ड ऑफ कंट्रोल, सेकंड है कोर्ट ऑफ डायरेक्टर। Board of Control was created to supervise the political affair of India, and Court of Director was retained to manage the commercial and trading affair of the company. Board of Control consists 6 members appointed by British government. It controls the political and administrative matter of India. Board of Control could give order to company on all civil, military and revenue matter. Court of Director consists 24 directors elected by shareholder. It manages the commercial and trading activities of the company, and Court of Director responsible for trade, finance and appointments. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट है स्ट्रेंथनिंग ऑफ गवर्नर जनरल. ये एक्ट गवर्नर जनरल की पावर को इंक्रीज करता है एंड हिज कंट्रोल ओवर प्रेसिडेंसी ऑफ बॉम्बे एंड मद्रास वॉज स्ट्रेंथन. नेक्स्ट है सेंट्रलाइजेशन ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एंड ग्रेटर कंट्रोल ऑफ ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट. सो दिस एक्ट ब्राउट द ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी मोर अंडर द कंट्रोल ऑफ ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट. नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ दिस एक्ट. So, this act was the beginning of direct British government supervision over India. Second point है, this act reduced the independence of East India Company. And third है, it laid the foundation for future administrative reform. And last point है, this act was a step towards the establishment of British rule in India. Did you know the East India Company ruled India for 20 more years because of one important law, that is Charter Act 1793. Charter Act of 1793 was passed by the British Parliament. Its main purpose was to renew the East India Company's charter for another 20 years. This act also continued the company's trade monopoly in India until 1813. This act increased the power of Governor General and reinforced his authority over the presidency. And one important point is that the salary of the Governor General and the senior official were paid from the revenues collected in India. Unlike some later act, the Charter Act of 1793 did not introduce any major constitutional changes. It merely continued the existing administrative system. Did you know that the Charter Act of 1813 ended the East India Company's trade monopoly in India? The Charter Act of 1813 was passed by the British Parliament. It was the last of the East India Company's Charter Act. By this act, the company's trade monopoly was ended, but its political power in India continued. The first major provision of this act was that it ended the East India Company's monopoly over trade in India. However, the company retained its monopoly over trade in tea and with China. Second, the act allowed private British merchants to trade in India, which increased commercial activities. For the first time, Christian missionaries were allowed to enter India for the purpose of education and propagation of Christianity. Another important point is that the Act provided that the sum of 1 lakh per year would be spent on the promotion of education in India. The Act also renewed the East India Company's charter for another 20 years, that is till 1833. And the last point is that the Act clearly stated that the British government would not interfere in the religious belief and practice of the people of India. Let's talk about the significance of this Act. So the first point is that it ended the company's trade monopoly in India. It opened India to private British trade and competition. It allowed Christian missionaries and encouraged Western education. It was a step towards the spread of modern education in India. The political power of the company, however, remained unaffected. Did you know that the Charter Act of 1833 completely changed the role of the East India Company? The Charter Act of 1833 was passed by the British Parliament. It was a landmark act which changed the administration of British India. So the first major change was that Lord William Bentinck became the first Governor General of India. Before this act, he was the Governor General of Bengal. The second important feature was that the Bombay and Madras presidencies lost their independent legislative power. Another important provision was that the East India Company ended all its commercial and trading activities. After this act, the company became only an administrative body governing India on behalf of the British Crown. The act also established the first law commission headed by the Macaulay, which later laid the foundation for the Indian Penal Code. The act also declared that no person shall be disqualified from any office under the company on the ground of religion, caste, or place of birth. But in reality, higher posts remained mostly inaccessible to Indian. And the last provision was that the act took step towards the abolition of slavery in India. Let's talk about the important point of this act. So the first is it marked the beginning of a centralized administration in India. Second, it ended the commercial role of the East India Company. And third, it laid the foundation for a uniform legal system. The Charter Act of 1833, also called St. Helena Act. Did you know the Charter Act 1853 was the last of the Charter Act? Charter Act 1853 was passed by the British Parliament. It was the last of the Charter Act. It continued the rule of the East India Company but introduced important reform. So the first reform is after this act the East India Company was not granted any further charter. And also act did not fix any time limit for the company's rule in India. And the third point is that separation of legislative and executive function. So the act separated the legislative and executive function of the Governor General's Council. The Governor General Council was divided into two parts, one for legislation and other for executive work. Legislative Council was increased from 4 to 6 members. This helped in better decision and making of law. Governor General's Legislative Council was given the power to make laws for the whole of British India. This ended the legislative power of the Presidency of Madras and Bombay. For the first time, the Act introduced open competitive examination for recruitment to the civil service of the company. Later, this service was known as Indian Civil Service. The revolt of 1857 was the first major uprising against British rule in India. It began on 10 May 1857 at Meerut and spread to many parts of North and Central India. It is also known as India's first war of independence. Let's talk about cause of the revolt. So the first point is political cause. Doctrine of lapse, annexation of state like Jhansi, Tara, Nagpur, etc. तो होता क्या था? If an Indian ruler had no biological son, then British took over his kingdom. And the second point is economic cause. Heavy land revenue, exploitation of farmers, artisans and traders. So the point is farmer had to pay very high land taxes. And the third point is social and religious cause. British interfere in social custom and religious belief. It means Indian feared that the British wanted to change their religion and culture. At that time, Christian missionaries become more active. People feared that the British wanted to convert them to Christianity. And the last and important point, जो कि immediate cause था revolt का. So the point is, rumor of Enfield known. It's not rumor. It's actual of Enfield rifle cartridge being greased with cow and pig fat. So होता क्या था? Soldier had to bite open the cartridge before loading it. Cartridge issue became the spark that started the revolt of 1857. The revolt spread to many important areas like Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Jhansi, Gwalior, Bareilly, Faizabad and many others. अब बात करते हैं इसके इम्पोर्टेंट लीडर्स की. रानी लक्ष्मीबाई ऑफ झांसी, नाना साहेब, तात्या टोपे, कुंवर सिंह, बेगम हजरत, ये सब इस रिवोल्ट के इम्पोर्टेंट लीडर थे. लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ दिस रिवोल्ट. So the first point is the revolt was suppressed by 1858. East India Company rule ended. Government of India Act 1858 was passed and India's came directly under British Crown. The post of Viceroy was introduced. A strong army recognition and policy of divide and rule was followed. The revolt of 1857 was not successful, but the important point is it awakened the spirit of freedom in Indians and laid the foundation for future freedom struggle. अगर हम बात करें इसके मेन इवेंट की, सो द फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज़ मे 1857 रिवोल्ट एट मेरठ एंड कैप्चर ऑफ दिल्ली. June 1857 कानपुर कैप्चर्ड बाय rebellions and नाना साहेब became the leader. June-July 1857 लखनऊ कैप्चर्ड एंड बेगम हजरत महल took charge. June 1857 रानी लक्ष्मीबाई fought bravely in Jhansi. And 1857 to 1858 many battles between the British and the rebellions. By mid-1858 the British suppressed the revolt. What if I told you that one rebellion completely changed the way India was ruled? After the revolt of 1857, the British government decided that the East India Company could no longer rule India. So in 1858, the British Parliament passed the Government of India Act 1858. Yes, the Government of India Act 1858 ended the rule of the East India Company and brought India under the direct control of the British Crown. Let's talk about the provision of this act. So the first point is abolition of East India Company. The East India Company was abolished and its rule in India came to an end. And the second point is that transfer of power to the British Crown. The administration of India was taken over by the British Crown. And the next point is that a new office of Secretary of State for India was created. He was a member of the British cabinet. He had complete control over Indian affairs. He was assisted by a council of 15 members. And the fourth point is that the council of 15 members was known as the Council of India. The members were appointed by the Crown. It was only an advisory body. And the next point is that the Governor General of India was given the additional title of Viceroy of India. The first Viceroy of India was Lord Canning. Next point is that centralization of administration. More power was given to the central government. The authority of the presidencies was reduced. And the seventh point is control over Indian Army. The British Crown took direct control of the Indian Army. And the next point is that the British government declared that it would not interfere in the religious belief and social custom of the people. And the last point is that equality of all subjects. It declared that all subjects of the Queen would be treated equally irrespective of race, religion or color. अगर हम इसकी सिग्निफिकेंस की बात करें, सो द फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज़ दैट इट मार्क द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द ब्रिटिश क्राउन डायरेक्ट रूल इन इंडिया. इट लेड द फाउंडेशन ऑफ अ मोर सेंट्रलाइज्ड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. इट वॉज द बिगिनिंग ऑफ मॉडर्न इंडियन ब्यूरोक्रेसी अंडर ब्रिटिश कंट्रोल. Indian Council Act 1861 was the first act which associated Indians with the legislative process to a limited extent. Its main objective was to involve Indians in the law-making process, although only to a limited extent. Let's look at the important points. So the first point is restoration of legislative power. The act restored the legislative power of the Bombay and Madras presidencies, which were taken away by the Charter Act 1833. And the second point is that expansion of Governor General's Executive Council. It expanded the Governor General's Executive Council for making law. The maximum number of additional members was fixed at 12. And the next point is nomination of Indians to Legislative Council. It allowed the Governor General to nominate Indians as non-official member in his Legislative Council. This was the beginning of Indians' association in law-making process. And the next point is introduction of portfolio system. It introduced the portfolio system. Under this system, each member of the Executive Council was given charge of a separate department. Here you can see portfolio system of Executive Council, Home Department, Finance Department, Military Department, Public Work Department. And the next point is empowerment of Governor General. It empowers the Governor General to make rules and regulation for Indian states. And the last point is no change in financial power. It did not make any change in the financial power. The control over finance remained with the Governor General. So the conclusion is the Indian Council Act 1861 was an important step in British India's constitutional development. Although Indians received only limited representation, but this act laid the foundation for their future participation in the legislative process. It is the way for further growth of legislative council in India. Did you know that the first step towards election in British India began in 1892, not after independence? So the main reason behind this act was the growing demand of the Indian National Congress, which was established in 1885. The Act of 1861 gave very limited representation to Indians. So Congress wanted more participation of Indians in the Legislative Council. To satisfy the growing demand of Indians, British government passed the Indian Council Act 1892. In this act, they increased the number of additional member non-official. Remember that. So in the both Central Legislative Council and Provisional Legislative Council. This act introduced indirect election for the first time, officially called nomination on recommendation. The members were given the right to discuss the annual budget, but they could not vote on the budget, right? And the next point is the members were allowed to ask question to the government, but a notice of 6 days was necessary. And the last point is more Indians were nominated in the council, but the official majority was always maintained. Another important feature was that even with these changes, the act had many limitations. There were no direct election, no power to vote on the budget, no power to pass or reject any resolution. Official majority was always maintained. Council had very limited legislative power, no responsible government. Let's talk about the significance. So the first point is it was the first step towards associating Indians with legislative work. It introduced the principle of election indirect in India. It laid the foundation for future reforms. Although the reforms were limited, but the Indian Council Act 1892 became an important milestone because it marked the beginning of Indian participation in the legislative process and laid the foundation for future constitutional reforms. Indian Council Act 1909, popularly known as the Morley-Minto Reform, because the reforms were introduced by Secretary of State for India John Morley and Viceroy of India Lord Minto. Let's begin with the background. After the partition of Bengal in 1905, the Swadeshi movement gained momentum, and the All India Muslim League was formed in 1906 and demanded for separate representation. At the same time, Indians demanded greater participation in the administration. So in response, the British Parliament passed the Indian Council Act 1909. Let's look at its key feature. So the first point is enlargement of Legislative Council. Both Central and Provisional Legislative Council were enlarged. More non-official, unofficial members were included. And the next point is separate electorate that were introduced for Muslim for the first time. It means that the member of a particular community were elected only by the voter of that community. And the next point is power of council. Member could ask supplementary question. They could discuss the budget. They could move resolution on matter of public interest, but they could not vote on the budget or remove the executive. And the next point is introduction of election. Election were introduced for the first time, but on a very limited scale. Most members were still nominated by the government. And the next point is Executive Council. Satendra Prasad Sinha became the first Indian member of the Viceroy Executive Council in 1909. And the last point is Provincial Legislative Council. So Legislative Council were enlarged in the following provinces: Madras, Bombay, Bengal, United Provinces, Punjab, Burma, Assam. Both official and non-official members were increased. Let's look at the structure of Legislative Council. In Central Legislative Council, the strength was increased from 16 to 60 members. It consisted of official and non-official members. And in Provincial Legislative Council, it included official and non-official members. And non-official can be the majority. Let's look at this side. The exact number of elected and nominated members varied from provinces to provinces. And elections were indirect and based on very limited franchises. And the next point is separate electorate for Muslim were based on communal representation. Let's look at the limitation of power of council. So council could not vote on the budget. They could not pass any resolution against the government. They had no power to remove the executive. Real power of administration remained with the executive British official. Let's talk about the significance. So the first point is first official recognition of the electoral principle in India, and it increased Indian participation in Legislative Council. It introduced separate electorate, that is communal representation, and this act laid the foundation for the constitutional development that followed. And it helped in the gradual growth of political consciousness among Indians. Let's look at the conclusion. So the first point is the Indian Council Act 1909 was a limited constitutional reform. It aimed to increase Indian participation in administration but retained British control. And the last point is the introduction of separate electorate was a major step which had a long lasting impact on Indian politics because British applied divide and rule policy. Do you know which act introduced Dyarchy system and bicameral legislature in British India? So the answer is Government of India Act 1919. This act is also known as the Montagu-Chelmsford Reform. It was based on the Montagu Declaration of 20 August 1917, in which the policy of progressive realization of responsible government in India was announced. Now the question is, what is responsible government? एक ऐसी गवर्नमेंट जो पावर में तभी रह सकती है जब तक वहाँ के लोग उसे पसंद कर रहे हैं. मतलब अगर आप अपनी चुनी हुई सरकार को जब मर्जी गिरा सकते हो, ऐसे सिस्टम को रिस्पॉन्सिबल गवर्नमेंट कहा जाता है. Let's look at the background. So the first point is, in 1917, Edwin Montagu announced the policy of progressive realization of responsible government in India. The Montagu-Chelmsford report was published in 1918. Based on this report, the Government of India Act 1919 was passed in the British Parliament. And one more reason was that after World War I, इंडियन जो थे वो एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे पॉलिटिकल रिफॉर्म इन रिटर्न फॉर देयर सपोर्ट टू ब्रिटेन ड्यूरिंग द वॉर. सो एज अ रिजल्ट द ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट पास द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1919. लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द प्रोविजन. सो द फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज Dyarchy इन प्रोविंसेस. For the first time, Dyarchy dual government was introduced in the provinces, and provincial subjects were divided into two lists: transferred subject and reserved subject. In transferred subject like education, public health, local self-government, agriculture, etc., these were administered by Indian minister responsible to the legislature. And in a reserved subject, it include law, order, policy, finance, revenue, irrigation, etc. These were administered by the governor with executive councillor. This Dyarchy system was to be tried for 10 years. And the second point is bicameral legislature was introduced at center. One is Council of State, that is called upper house, and another is Legislative Assembly, that is called lower house. Council of State is a permanent body. टोटल 60 मेंबर, जिसमें से 33 इलेक्ट होके आएंगे और 27 नॉमिनेट होके आएंगे. एंड लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली 3 ईयर टर्म का है. टोटल 145 मेंबर, जिसमें से 104 इलेक्ट होके आएंगे एंड 41 नॉमिनेट होके आएंगे. एंड द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज इंक्रीज्ड इंडियन रिप्रेजेंटेशन. The number of elected members in both the central and provincial legislature was increased. Now a majority of the members in the Legislative Assembly were elected, 104 out of 145. अब बात करते हैं डायरेक्ट इलेक्शन की. Direct election to the Legislative Assembly were held for the first time under this Act in 1920 in several provinces. In the central, election were indirect. And the next point is extension of franchise. Franchise was extended, but it remained very limited. Voting rights were based on property, tax payment, education, income, etc. Only about 3% of total population, around 50 lakh to 5 million people, were eligible to vote. And the next point is establishment of Public Service Commission. A Public Service Commission was provided for India. It was to be consulted on all matters of recruitment to public services. The first Public Service Commission was actually set up in 1926. Let's look at the provision. So the first point is separate communal electorate were continued and expanded to Sikh, Indian, Christian, Anglo-Indian, European, etc. Separation of Burma from India, establishment of a Labour Department, provision for the High Commissioner for India in London, continuation of the Office of Secretary of State for India. Let's look at the important points. So the first point is diarchy was introduced only in the provinces, not at the center. And the second point, the Secretary of State for India, salary paid by the British government. And the Higher Commissioner for India in London, salary paid from Indian revenues. Let's look at the conclusion. So the Government of India Act 1919 was an important but limited step towards self-government in India. It introduced diarchy in the provinces and increased Indian participation in legislature. But real power remained with the British. The act did not satisfy Indian aspiration and led the further demands for complete self-rule. Did you know that the Government of India Act 1935 was the largest constitutional law? So many important features of today's Indian Constitution like provisional autonomy, the Federal Court, Public Service Commission have their roots in this act. Let's look at the background. The Government of India Act 1935 was introduced after a series of political development. So the first point is Simon Commission. 1927 में ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट एक कमीशन अपॉइंट करती है, पॉपुलरली नोन एज द साइमन कमीशन, अंडर द चेयरमैनशिप ऑफ जॉन साइमन. एंड इस कमीशन का जो मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव था टू रिव्यू द वर्किंग ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1919 एंड सजेस्ट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म. बट इन दिस कमीशन ऑल 7 मेंबर वर ब्रिटिश एंड देयर वाज नो इंडियन मेंबर, जिसके कारण इस कमीशन को बाइकआउट किया जाता है अक्रॉस इंडिया और एक स्लोगन दिया जाता है साइमन गो बैक. एंड द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज नेहरू रिपोर्ट. 1928 में सभी पार्टी एक कमेटी अपॉइंट करती है अंडर द चेयरमैनशिप ऑफ मोतीलाल नेहरू टू प्रिपेयर अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल फ्रेमवर्क फॉर इंडिया. नेहरू रिपोर्ट वॉज द फर्स्ट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ड्राफ्ट बाय इंडियन. इस कमेटी की मेन रिकमेंडेशन ये होती है डोमेनियन स्टेटस फॉर इंडिया, पार्लियामेंट्री फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, फंडामेंटल राइट, जॉइंट इलेक्टोरेट विद रिजर्वेशन ऑफ सीट्स फॉर माइनॉरिटीज़, हिंदी इन देवनागरी स्क्रिप्ट एज द नेशनल लैंग्वेज. जॉइंट इलेक्टोरेट को कुछ मुस्लिम लीडर अपोज करते हैं, जिसके बाद मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना प्रेजेंट करते हैं 14 पॉइंट्स टू सेफ गार्ड द राइट्स ऑफ मुस्लिम एंड डिमांडेड फॉर सेपरेट इलेक्टोरेट, educate and effective representation of Muslim in legislature, and no decision against any community, provisional autonomy, 1/3 representation of Muslim in the central legislature, and last point is safeguard for culture, religion, language, etc. After that, the British government held 3 roundtable conference in London to discuss India's constitutional future. So first conference को Indian National Congress बाइकआउट करती है. फिर सेकंड कॉन्फ्रेंस को महात्मा गांधी अटेंड करते हैं एज द रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ कांग्रेस. थर्ड कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑल्सो फेल्ड टू रीच एनी सेटलमेंट. दीज 3 कॉन्फ्रेंस प्रोवाइडेड द बेसिस फॉर फ्यूचर रिफॉर्म. जिसके बाद ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट पब्लिश करती है वाइट पेपर ऑन द रिकमेंडेशन ऑफ राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस. इट आउटलाइन द प्रपोज्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म फॉर इंडिया. द वाइट पेपर वॉज एग्जामिन्ड बाय अ जॉइंट सेलेक्ट कमिटी The committee submitted its report in 1934, which formed the basis of the Government of India Act 1935. And the main objective of this act was to provide for a federal system of government for British India and the princely state. The act proposed all India Federation consisting of British Indian provinces and princely states. So princely states were free to join or not join. Because of that, federation never came into force because most of the princely states did not join. The act proposed a central legislature with two houses. One is Council of State, that is upper house, and second is Federal Assembly, that is lower house. The member were came from British Indian provinces and princely states, but federal system was never started because the princely states did not join the federation. So the federal legislature also never came into existence. For the first time, power divided into three lists: federal list, provincial list and concurrent list. In federal list, it includes 59 subjects like defense, external affair, railways, post, telegraphs, etc. Only the center could make law on these. And in provincial list, it includes 54 subjects like police, public health, agriculture, local government, land, fisheries, etc. These were controlled by the provinces. And in concurrent list, it includes 36 subjects like education, forest, trade unions, marriage and divorce, adoption, etc. Both the center and provinces could make law. These three list system, introduced by the Government of India Act 1935, later became the foundation of India's constitution under 7th schedule. One of the most important features of the Government of India Act 1935 was the introduction of diarchy at the center, but it was never implemented because the proposed federation itself never came into existence. Under this system, central subjects were divided into two categories: reserved subjects like defense, external affairs, tribal areas, etc., and in transferred subjects like all other subjects in federal list. This diarchy system never came into force. And the next point is provincial autonomy. Diarchy was abolished in the provinces. Provincial autonomy was introduced in 11 governors' provinces. 6 provinces had bicameral legislature: Bengal, Bombay, Madras, Bihar, Assam and United Provinces. Governor retained emergency power. And the next point is provincial legislature. Legislative council were introduced in all provinces. 6 provinces were bicameral and centre could not interfere in the provincial matter except in certain cases under special power of governor. Let's look at the other important provision. So Federal Court established in 1937. Reserve Bank of India established on 1st April 1935. Federal and Provincial Public Service Commission constituted, and franchise based on property, income, education, etc. Limited electorate about 3.5 crore voters. Secretary of State for India and Secretary of State for Burma made separate. And Council of India abolished. Last point is separate electorate continued for Muslim, Sikh, European, Anglo-Indian, Indian Christian, labourers, women, etc. Let's look at the changes in provinces. So Sindh separated from Bombay 1st April 1936 and Odisha separated from Bihar 1st April 1936 and Burma separated from India 1st April 1937.